if their organization is focused only on product innovation, on getting the next feature or the next iteration done, start searching for a new job. But the major issue within organizations is that you find a way to produce whatever you want to do below the operating costs of your competitor, profitably. It is a known problem for executives and board members that we know less than 4 to 7% of the critical information which frontline employees know. How do you want to win a game that is already playing based on new rules when you're still playing the old game?
Welcome everyone to the Nexus of Next Innovation podcast. And today I have the absolute pleasure of having Daniel Parraghy here with me today. Daniel is an applied systems and organizational scientist. He develops holistic strategies and really helps businesses navigate those challenging and tumultuous waters when it comes to changing market environments, just standard business problems that's difficult to solve. He serves on multiple boards and has helped businesses from all over the world. He's been at the forefront of holistic strategy development, and he uses systems thinking and system dynamics to transform organizational challenges into opportunities. In this episode, we'll be diving into Daniel's journey from coding in the area of Flash all the way through to large-scale business transformations. Daniel, it's such a pleasure to have you here with us, and thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Francois.
So Daniel, something that I think is so interesting about you is that you discovered early on in your life that you were having something that was perceived to be a challenge personally, and eventually became your biggest superpower to help you spot patterns and see things from a completely different angle, helping you to innovate, redesign, and revolutionize how organizations operate. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey with neurodivergence.
Well, I learned just last year when I became 33, just before my 34th birthday, to be honest, that I'm neurodivergent. Until then, it was just, I sensed something was off, but I didn't know what. And it was like, during my childhood, I was curious about things. I always wanted to know, how does it work? And once I knew how it works, I was able to either improve it or use it to my advantage, or just get out of its way, not to get harmed. So it was like with Flash, it was, everyone was playing these games, and I just was interested in how they work. So that's how I started with ActionScript. And
that's so cool.
It was a fun journey. I mean, in school, nobody could like trap me into, you have to do this or that. Once I got out of school, I did whatever I wanted.
It's a good thing you've got a passion for business, because I think that's your unique superpower. You know, it sounds like you dabbled in systems thinking before you even knew what systems thinking was, and today it's probably one of the things that helps you solve incredibly difficult and complicated business problems. I'm curious, you were about to tell me a little bit more about what you think innovation is, and I'm super curious to hear your view about what innovation is in business today.
Um, well, we first have to like make the difference between what people understand when we say innovation. Many think about innovation in terms of that eureka moment, like apple falling on
Mm.
your head and now you're Newton coming up with gravity. And it's not like that. Basically, innovation is a byproduct of habits, activities, processes, and even just like tinkering, absorbing information and then going for a walk and let your subconscious bounce around things and come up with new ways of how you could approach stuff. Like taking things which are around, like a stick, a long stick, and a sharp knife, and figuring out if I get that sharp stone onto that stick, I could throw it and maybe catch a
Mm.
deer.
Sounds like it's resources, leveraging resources, and using that in a way to get a better result than you were getting before.
Well, it's no secret that most of the innovations which are produced, what research develops, isn't even used just like 10, 20, or 30 years later. If at all. I mean, some stuff is just somewhere in a R&D department or somewhere at the university, and it never becomes a spin-off.
Mm. I find like sometimes it's just too early, or it's it's just not, the timing was maybe a little bit off or something like that. I mean, if we look at like even this, this was a brilliant idea in a box in a basement for a very long time before it became something popular that everyone uses today.
That's true. Think about smartphones. The first
Mm.
smartphone wasn't invented by Apple.
No.
So it was invented in the 1990s, 93 or 94. I forgot the company which it was, but I think it was Microsoft maybe or something like that. Um, it was technology wasn't ripe, but they tried to come up
Yeah.
with it already. But once we had the internet and a little bit more processing power, now that's where the magic happened. You need a certain amount of technological advancements so that it can culminate in the next stage.
Mm. It's almost like a build up. It kind of builds up and then it avalanches onto the next stage. I'm curious,
Absolutely.
like, how have you seen that manifest in business? Like when an organization is facing a challenge and then they kind of build up this almost like an innovation avalanche in a way. How do you see that happen in a positive way?
Take, for example, Blockbuster and Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Blockbuster had a brick and mortar store with thousands of stores, which was investment heavy. So you need a lot of investments and loans from banks or from investors to create or expand the branch network. And Netflix back at the time, it was pre-internet, just the internet was like starting to exist when Netflix was still like sending out copies of
Yeah.
videos. It was like a subscription service. You subscribed and you received a certain number of videos every single month or week. And they couldn't compete, but what they could was like trying to figure out how to use that new thing, which was the internet. And by doing that, they just in small scale started to do things, which for Blockbuster, it made no sense. Why would
Mm.
we want to remove the brick and mortar stores. We invested so much into it. That's the loss aversion. That's the human side of decision making. So when you have incentives in place in a huge organization, they can effectively stop your people from exploring things which in the long term replaces the organization as it is.
It's almost like a blindness that gets created, there's a term they use called cognitive blindness, with a moonwalking bear across the basketball court when they ask people to count the number of basketball passes. And I feel like those biases associated with like heavy investment or a fear of loss or the sunk cost fallacy coming into play kind of creates those blind spots where there's like a blinker on at the moment. And even if it slaps you in the face, you're not going to respond to it in the appropriate way. I know that Netflix wanted to sell to Blockbuster at some point, and Blockbuster didn't actually take them up. And today,
Yes.
I think Blockbuster would have been very happy in being sold to Netflix.
I mean, take for a moment, I think it was 2015 or 2016 when Elon Musk was on stage being on a panel with 2 or 3 other people talking about the future of mobility, and everyone in the audience was like chuckling about what he was saying. They were laughing about his predictions, and he said that in 10 or 15 years all of you will be out of business. And it's not because of his arrogance, and he is, but it's because there is a simple fact that when you have a huge business model which relies on no deviation from X or whatever product you have, because that's driving your revenues, and everyone is measured to like drive this one forward. Take, for example, Volkswagen. All of their profits, most of it, stem from ICEs. And instead of doubling down now finally on their electric mobility and electric cars, they start to discuss how to like do both. Yes, of course, you still need ICEs because people want to buy them, but you can't win in the future when your electric car isn't what people want to buy in 5 or 10 years.
ICE is
So the
internal
only
combustion
way how
engine, right?
Volkswagen could do both is if they stop producing electric cars within their existing model and create an e-Volkswagen brand and do it separately, completely outside of the existing order, because they won't change the structures of the existing company.
How have you seen organizations manage to create the space for innovation from a leadership perspective? Because that is a problem that every single well-established industrialized business face. Is they face the challenge of having something that they're really good at doing, and there's sunk cost fallacy, there is focus, all of that is there. But when the market starts changing, how do you see businesses creating that space for people to start thinking differently while the industrialized process is still operating efficiently? Because it won't always operate efficiently, right? Like there will be new emergent threats. It might be electric vehicles, it might be AI, it might be something else.
So now we're going into paradigm shifts, what you're talking about, when the market is changing, and it doesn't change overnight. So if I remember correctly, you read the second edition of my newsletter, in which I dissected the 5 forces that which go into changing a paradigm from what it is today into what it will be in the future. And when organizations try to leverage or double down on their strengths, like what you mentioned, or what, for example, Volkswagen is again trying to do or considering to do, then they are effectively suboptimizing their whole organization, and it will accelerate their downfall. Because they take their strength and push it to that certain limit where it stops being a strength. It
It's
becomes
like almost
Achilles heel.
It's like over optimization of a strength becomes, or over dependence and over leverage of an existing strength creates blind spots and vulnerabilities in a business that isn't immediately apparent, but then becomes apparent when that double down or that heavy investment and heavy leverage of that single strength starts faltering.
We
And then it's
started
too
with
late.
talking about basketball. Now imagine you're playing basketball, you have your team and there is another team, and you don't know when, but somewhere along the line of playing, you know that the game's rules will change. Now, you keep ignoring that the rules changed, and you still play the same old game. Can you win?
You're trying to play by the old rules, but there's
Yes.
new rules now. Yeah.
How do you want to win a game that is already playing based on new rules when you're still playing the old game? You can't.
Well, you can try. You're just not going to have a good time, I guess.
No, it will be frustrating because you will go through the 5 stages of grief, and you will first deny that something changed. Then it will anger you because, well, why? Why am I not allowed to do this or that? Or why do I have to pass on the ball to the other team now? I didn't do anything wrong because you're still playing the old game. But in the rules of the new game, what you did was wrong.
Yeah.
It will
And that
frustrate you
denial.
to the point where you will be depressed because the other team will keep scoring and you won't be able to even get anywhere close to just do one score.
So it's almost like keeping your eyes open for when the rules starts changing.
Yes.
And seeing which signals it is that you should be looking out for. I'm curious, how do you spot those signals, and how do you overcome those blind spots in an organization in your view?
It depends on what organization we are talking about, because there is not one size that fits all. So you have different types of organizations, and depending on what view of our existence and the assumptions which went into designing that organization, it can be a mechanistic, a biological, or the social-cultural or socio-economic view. Each of them has a unique set of assumptions that go into the design and makeup of how that organization is designed and will be functioning. Depending on each of these models has their strengths, but also limitations and trade-offs and unintended consequences. And they only work in certain environments. So you have to know, am I playing now really basketball because I'm standing on a football field? Don't try to play basketball on a football field. Very simple.
Yeah, you're going to get hit, and you're going to probably make your way to the ground very quickly, if I could stretch that analogy as far as it goes. Something that's quite interesting is that certain organizations are more adaptive to change than others. And in a lot of cases, it's due to the organizational design. And I really enjoyed having a look at your last newsletter, where you talked about like how you've got these mechanistic hierarchies and how you can then transition that into decentralized intelligence in a very methodical way. Help me just understand that premise a little bit more.
Well, you can't transform it, but you can like take the organization as it is. If it's a mechanistic model, which means it is tops down, rigid structure, no feedback, do what I say. I don't care about your brain. I just need your two hands to live with a quote which is attributed to Henry Ford, but there is no proof that he ever said it. But it just like symbolizes the industrial era in which we don't care about the people. They are just another part in the machinery that produces something which we need to sell. Back then, the challenge was how can we produce for the masses products or whatever we need to sell, if it's food or whatever. Mass production was key. How can we achieve it? And he broke down every single task into just one motion that was simple, regardless of someone's education and background. They were able to fulfill that one motion. So imagine a person doing for 10 or 12 or 14 hours a day, just that one mindless motion.
Yeah, I don't envy that at all.
Yes, so that's one of the consequences that comes along with that view and how to organize labor and work.
But it's almost reductionist in nature, isn't it? Because it
It
basically
is.
reduces people down to mechanical functions. And I think there's way more
Yes.
potential in people than, being able to screw on a cap or do something like that. And unfortunately, mechanistic organizations, yes, it's knowledge work, but those mechanistic organizations are effectively doing the same in forcing people who can think for themselves and have potential to still screw on a cap on an assembly line, proverbially.
Yes, but we have to understand that the context in which this model like emerged, it was a lot of people have been starting to being laid off through the invention of the tractor. And
Yes.
when you don't need anymore 90 people working on a field from 100, but only 10, what do you do with those people? They started migrating into the cities, and that created issues, but at the same time, a huge potential.
An opportunity, yeah.
So when labor is cheaper than machinery, you just take labor. We don't need their brains, we need their hands. It
Of
was simple.
course, yeah.
And it created wealth for people. I mean, look at Chicago. It was prospering. People had well-paying jobs. Of course, they did nonsense, taking it apart, putting it there, or whatever. One motion the whole day, 5 or 6 days a week. But it created wealth. During its height, Ford was selling more cars or producing more cars than all of his competitors combined. This
That's
is the
like the
power.
definition. You were saying?
Yes. So there is power in this model. Now the question is, how do you improve it in ways in which the human isn't just reduced anymore to like that mindless, motion fulfilling, whatever you want to call it.
Automaton, yeah.
And you receive feedback from the front, because that's the Achilles heel of that model. You need external intervention to improve it. It is not created for adaptation.
Yeah, it's created for exploitation and doing one thing incredibly well. It's almost like the ASICs of the CPU world or the processor world. It's good with that one thing.
The system has only one purpose. Fulfill whatever purpose the owner of the company or the organization has, or the owners, if it's more than one.
Or the leader, yeah.
If
I'm
it's
curious.
To produce X or whatever, fulfill that one purpose.
I'm curious what's your thoughts on how both creating an environment where people can break out of that reductionist position, like that mindless assembly line type of work, even though it's knowledge workers, like how that could accelerate a business forward. And then on the other side, how just creating decent feedback loops that people can use to surface high quality ideas and high quality opportunities to the level at which it actually can be taken action upon.
Well, what I learned over the years that people struggle with imagining how an organization looks like. So the best way to start with is to map everything. Not just how it's built up in 2 dimensions, but put it in a perspective of 3 dimensions.
Or a graph even, yeah.
Yes. Like illustrate it. And then add to it everything. How is the data flowing? With data, I mean information. Top to bottom to the top. Who is communicating with whom? Who is reporting to whom? How long does it take for that information to be seen, to be processed, to be answered to?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, that time, because that impacts responsivity to change probably the most, is just the time that it takes
then also
for information
you will
to
see
surface.
How often people ask for more information, how long it takes to make a decision. And then you will start to be able to see, okay, wait a second. Why does it take a long time for information A to go through the whole cycle to the person who needs it? And then you can also like ask yourself, these types of information or these decisions, do they have to be made this high on the hierarchy? Or can I like delegate it to the lower levels? Because these are not impacting the organization on a long term. They are contained to like software or machinery or whatever the type of business is you're dealing with. And it's an evolutionary improvement of the software, or maybe the UX or user interface of whatever product you have. So instead of pushing that to senior or executives, they shouldn't waste their time with it.
I found that organizations tends to have those two patterns. Either the decisions are being made at a too high a level of the organization, and so the leadership then wastes their time in making decisions that could have been made at a lower level. And then on the other side, you've got this challenge where there's all of these incentive-based filters within an organization as part of the hierarchy, where let's say there's an event that happens on like n-5 layers from the most senior leadership. And so now for that information, let's say it's meaningful information, for that information to get to the top, you're not only talking about the time delay, and whether or not there even exists a channel for that information to make its way up there. You also have to deal with the filters in between, where the filter might be someone that is incentivized to do X, but this piece of information is shining a spotlight on Y. And so those hierarchical filters also restricts communication in the organization. And so there might be something incredibly valuable happening, but it's impossible for senior leadership to know and allocate resources to it.
Now we're talking already about another model in view, because these layers and the decision-making process which you described is attributable to the biological view. And with that, I mean, every living organization or organism has one brain. And when you model an organization with a centralized brain, which means the power over people and power to decide is centralized within each layer on one person or one function, then you're effectively creating mini dictators. Because the only way to get ahead is by even just the slightest, by being more competitive and behaving in ways which is antisocial, to just get to that limited position above. Let's say you have 20 people on one layer, but only 5 people one layer above.
Yeah.
So when there is one spot, you have to push away 19 people to get your seat up there.
Yeah, it's the slicing the pie versus growing the pie zero-sum game problem.
So
someone
you
needs to win.
instantly, just by the build-up of this system, I mean, for us humans, it's good that our heart or our lungs, to the command of keep pumping or keep breathing, that they are not like, nah, dude, I want to have a 5-minute break. I need a sick.
That would be a tough day.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it's good that our organs and cells, they have to comply with what our brain is dictating. But in an organization, when you have all these layers, they are always, every sublayer has to follow the rules set by the next superior layer. So it's
And
like
they might not be the same
from
and
outside
consistent.
in, the closer you get, the smaller it is, the deviation with regards to the rules set by one layer above.
It's almost like comparing, and I think you also mentioned it in your newsletter, like comparing certain organs to like functionally specific organizational units or business units within a larger business.
Absolutely. Some are survival critical and others can be spared. Which is why we often see in certain organizations that when, for example, HR isn't considered to be one of the core functions, that from overnight they just decide that 90% of these people can go.
Yeah. Unfortunately, those are usually decisions that have a very, very long lagging impact on the business, because that's usually like people's cycles and health and wellness and culture all have very, very long or late lagging indicators to decisions, and have loads of leading indicators, but they are usually very loosely correlated to the actual results. And so it's kind of a very challenging thing. And I think I think the reason why, and this is my hypothesis, and I'd love to get your perspective on it, is let's say you take a mechanistic perspective on an organization. Because of the reductionist nature, you're effectively reducing people to the function that they fulfill. And by association, reducing the value that they can potentially contribute to the function that they fulfill. And
Their
because
potential in that moment doesn't matter anymore,
it
because you don't
doesn't,
see them as
yeah,
a human.
you don't see them as a human. And so
They are just
I
one
think,
of many parts in the organization that produces something.
yeah, that's
Because,
true.
and you will be surprised, but a lot of founders who I've met, who created an organization below 100 people, they all had like some sort of basic mechanistic view in the organization when I looked at it.
I think it
When you
has to
then,
be there to a certain degree.
when you split it, when you have, for example, the same kind of founder from a university in an innovation hub or in an innovation ecosystem, and they have advisors, they start advising through the scaling phase to use the Sloanian, the Alfred Sloanian organizational model, which is the divisional structure, which creates then mini dictators.
Yeah. And I feel like that effectively becomes one of the biggest challenges for organizations to be responsive in a rapidly changing market, right? Because if you're installing these types of mini mini dictators with their organizational control mechanisms and the broken incentive structures that comes with it, then when you have to deal with those 5 stages of grief in where everyone started playing football but they're still playing basketball, because of that structure, it becomes very, very difficult to quickly reorganize the internal components of the business.
It's
And
effectively
then,
impossible.
yeah, and that's why we also see like all of these large businesses are constantly going through some form of flux where there is some form of organizational restructure, and it's like super complicated to manage, and almost always results in loads of lost opportunity and lost productivity. And so my question to you, Dan, is what are your thoughts around more decentralized organizations that's more flat in a hierarchical structure, and how you see the differences between these organizations operate within that space?
Well, we have no real 100% decentralized organizations. Every organization which we see out there has either taken the mechanistic view or the biological view and just broken it down to flatten it out. But a real socio-cultural or a socio-economic view means that it's completely flat. It is not based on control, and it evolves around communication, collaboration, and shared values. It is a trust-based organization. There is not one person who can, based on their title, tell anyone or control or even has the need to control anyone. There are other reasons behind these organizations, how they form, how they function. Because we humans, we are not, when humans collaborate, we are not parts of a machine, and we are not cells that have to like follow the rules set by the brain. We all have an own brain. So, which means it requires a very different approach to lead such an organization and how to govern it. This is why we don't have yet a real flat and decentralized organization, because we don't have a governance model how at the top, because we still have economic responsibilities towards our investors, towards the government,
shareholders, all of that. Yeah.
yes. So there is responsibility, and which means we need governance. How can we create a governance structure which will allow us to blindly leave control invisible because we can trust each other? It is a known problem for executives and board members that we know less than 4 to 7% of the critical information which frontline employees know.
And it's a tough one, that, because it's not due to lack of interest. It is just due to lack of organizational design and information architecture at the end of the day that causes this type of challenge. And so it's almost up to the leader to sometimes take a book out of one, or a leaf out of one of those books of those reality TV shows where the boss goes down to the floor and becomes a low-level employee. But it's almost a force function on gaining access to information
Francois,
on the ground.
I would need to stop the recording for 2 minutes. Can you give me that? I'm having a call which I need to pick up.
Yeah.
So where were we?
So we're talking about how you have centralized and decentralized organizations, and
some are centralized and some are semi-decentralized.
Decentralized.
It's not. Yeah. We have no fully decentralized systems or organizations, and some would claim that we already have a model. It's called Scrum and Agile, but the problem is that it's working as long as it's very small. We can't scale it beyond 150 people because, or better said, even if you just take Agile release trains, then maximum is 450 people. That's as far as we can scale Agile decentralized or somewhat decentralized. The moment we want to go into more, scale it above 450 people, you already hit the wall, and you have to cram it somehow, either into a centralized system, most of them below a PMO, then it's already worthless because you will be spinning around in circles until the PMO decides what to do, or even just answers your email. Or you have the divisional structure, and then you already have someone else dictating to you what to do.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting how that lines up with Dunbar's number, right? Like how 150 people, we were kind of programmed to be more or less within that space from a tribal perspective, and how these flat systems work in that way. It's also quite interesting how a decentralized organization can temporarily exist. And this is the bit that I kind of have become quite curious about, because if you think about a lot of the structures within organizations, they are usually very, very incentive based. And so as a result, there is a very, very clear incentive structure, and the control structure is actually a function of the incentive structure. It's not the other way around. The control structure is there to ensure that the incentives are met. And so I'm always been curious about how you can create these temporary moments within an organization where you can be decentralized. And you see it happen sometimes with brainstorming, or in team building events, for example, or in Agile, they've got this practice called program increment planning, or PI planning, where you see that decentralized structure play out a little bit and how that actually works. And And one thing that I've seen it as
but
well is
only
in
on
like
small scale.
only on small scale. Yeah, I found interestingly enough, like we see that internal innovation hackathons struggle to be valuable or easily valuable above 150 people. If we exceed the 150 person mark, we need to spend like almost double the amount of effort in using software and incentive structures to control the process. So like effectively creating like a software defined organization almost temporarily.
Now, the problem which you describe is basically that, how can I explain it? So when you take a machine or a biological system, then you have either the hardware, the machinery,
Mm-hmm.
which has its motions that control it. So in whatever way it's set in motion, that's the direction in which it will move. For the biological system, you have the genetics, the genetical code, either of the plant or whatever organism it is, which gives it a prime how to reproduce, what to do, how adaptive it is. And it only always works in certain environments. For us humans, when we collaborate, we are the nodes within the system. And
Mm.
our information, which we, through collaboration and communication, share with each other, that's our software. Now,
Mm.
you can do the math, how many communication channels you need or that exist for 150 people.
Mm.
It's a lot. Already with 10 people, you're at 96 communication channels.
Yeah, it's the challenge of the number of communication channels is equal to n squared, right?
Well,
So
somewhere I have
that's a,
the formula for it. I don't know it out of grasp, but it's n, something like n times n minus 1 or something like that. I'm not sure. I should check it up. Somewhere I have the graph for it.
I'm checking. I'm checking quickly now. I think um, it's the connections is n times n minus 1 over 2.
Yes.
Well, that's what they say. Yeah. For a multinodal peer-to-peer network. But
Yes.
I think you're onto
So
something there
the
because the
problem is
complexity of
that,
communication is too high. Yeah.
which is important, that for us humans, this information serves only one purpose. When we trust each other and we communicate and collaborate with each other, we form a shared image of what we want or how we see our existence, how we want to proceed. Through conflicts, we receive alignment. In a
Mm.
decentralized network, conflict is good. In
Yeah,
any other
competition is
setting,
good. Yeah.
in any other setting, conflict between peers is undesirable. In a decentralized network, it is desirable because you will get closer to alignment.
I think it's also because of the incentive, right? Like uh, if there's conflict in a decentralized network that is optimized to deliver optimized for an incentive structure, it is a positive sum game because the conflict will resolve to head closer to the desired incentive uh, for the collective. But if it is a hierarchical model, conflict is a negative sum game or a zero sum game, or in some cases negative sum actually, purely because for there to be a winner, there needs to be a loser. And in most cases, for there to be one winner, there needs to be 19 losers. And not to mention the actual impact of that conflict to exist. So that's a very interesting observation, Daniel. Very, very interesting.
So imagine when you take like 100 people, they don't know each other. You throw them somewhere in the wilderness. There is no structure, nothing, just 100 people. And they have to figure out how to survive. There is no incentives. There is only one need. We need to collaborate to survive. So,
which is the human superpower, right?
Yes. It is the result of our genetics. We are not the strongest and not the fittest, but the most adaptive species.
And
we
collaborative,
We adapt to our environment through not just communication, but also through collaboration, which is only possible when we trust each other. And we trust each other when we have one shared goal, which we want to achieve. So in the setting of the 100 people, the survival, ensuring that we survive, is the shared image. Now, then the question becomes, how? And then this means they will have to communicate with each other. Discussions are needed. Influence happens. Trust is formed. And then people can effectively trust each other that Martin will do this stuff. Rebecca will do that stuff. And Shanti will take care of this, and Francois will do that. They don't have to control each other because you have your strengths, you know what you're good at, and you go after certain things. And you leave what you're not good at to other people. And by delivering, you even strengthen the bond because you contributed in a positive way to the society's survival.
I feel like humans are almost hardwired to work in cross-functional teams, where you've got different strengths and playing to each of those strengths, be that hunting, gathering, creating shelter, or whatever it is. All of those create almost a product rather than a sum of all of the individual contributions.
This is when innovation happens, because you take what you have, what is already there, and you try to put it together in new ways with which you solve a problem radically different. In business, this means that you need to find a way, and I don't talk about product innovation now, but a business model innovation, or even more radical, which completely revolutionizes or completely destroys certain industries and replaces it. That you find a way to produce whatever you want to do below the operating costs of your competitor, profitably.
Hang on, say that again. So you try and reproduce below the operating cost.
Imagine making books costs you per book $10 operationally. So your fixed costs are 10, your variable costs are 5, somewhere between 3 and 5, and then your profits are somewhere between 5 and 7. Now, when you're a newcomer and you have someone like that with these costs, you need to find a way to have your fixed and your variable costs and your profit below 10. So when that happens, the incumbent even can lower his prices to $10 and accept that for a certain period they will lose on the variable costs. But you will be still making a profit while paying all your costs. They can't compete. That's where
your model is sustainable. I think that is actually such a nice segue into both the challenges and the tremendous potential of the world of AI augmented automation. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we are starting to see more and more and more emergent businesses that are taking a very, very heavy automated view on producing goods and services, leveraging generative AI, that effectively drives their cost point, both fixed and variable, far below that of their competitors. And so they can sustainably outcompete on price, which was historically completely impossible. And that, I think, is catching a lot of businesses at the moment, trying still to play basketball while football has just come around the corner.
Well, I would frame it differently. Imagine you're still playing basketball while having your, like, let's say, Air Jordans, but they have a new version of Air Jordans with which you don't have to jump yourself, but you can effectively jump enhanced. And instead of having only your hands, now you have like high-tech gloves. And it doesn't matter from where you shoot, your shot is perfect with those gloves. Now, there is a certain deviation for shots from a real person, but with those gloves, 0. Every shot is perfect. How can you compete with someone like that? It's impossible.
Yeah. And then you might have to have a whole team that you're competing with that person with. And that might be only one person or two people.
It's like trying to keep 2 dogs in a bathtub while washing them.
And it's not the type of dogs that enjoys water.
Yes.
It's not the type.
It's not a Labrador.
So what I'm hearing, Daniel, is that trying to face off against a AI-enabled or highly automated competitor is like keeping 2 dogs that hate water into the same bath.
Yes. But we have to be cautious here, because when you take your organization, because this is what currently many organizations do, they just throw AI at whatever problem they have.
Oh, yeah. And that's not the way to do it.
Which is nonsense. The first thing which I would do is go to the external and see, how has the market shifted? How will it evolve? How do I have to adjust my structures to within this changing environment? How can I deliver what I want in 1 year, 3 years? In this, you have also contingency planning. You have various protocols, how to behave in what situation. You have ghost scenarios, which, if that happens, it could destroy your organization. How do you want to handle these? They are unlikely by default, but when they happen, Startup X comes around and
Takes your
overnight
lunch.
you become obsolete. What do you do then?
Mm. And I think in today's world where we're seeing more and more businesses get created, when we think about it statistically, the more businesses are created, the higher the probability is of a black swan event, right? And if Nassim Taleb has taught us anything, it is that a non-zero statistical probability is a non-zero statistical probability. It can happen.
It
And
can
if you
and will
take
happen. The
eventually,
question is
yeah,
when, not
exactly.
if.
And yeah, and the more businesses enter the market, and the easier it becomes for people to start businesses, and especially businesses that's got a model that could potentially threaten your business model, the higher the likelihood that those negative eventualities will materialize.
Well, in with this regards, I have to the listeners or those watching, I have one very negative news for them.
Mm.
If their organization is focused only on product innovation, on getting the next feature or
Oh
the
yeah.
next iteration done, start searching for a new job.
Mm. Yeah.
Because those organizations are already exposed to the first force that's driving change, which is called imitation.
Mm.
Every successful strategy, every competitive edge is the result of differentiation. When you don't differentiate yourself and you're already replicating features, then you're already on the losing side.
Mm. Yeah, you need to have a new way of doing things. I would argue that innovation is the only form of sustainable differentiation. Like there isn't another sustainable form of differentiation out there.
Well, in its essence, the moment when someone starts copying you, you have to find a new way to change the rule of the games again.
Mm, mm. Re-engineering value or creating more value or making
Just
it difficult for your
opening your
competitor to
eyes, what's
enter.
on the market, what can I do, um, plug and play, throw stuff at each other and see what sticks. What can I do and how can I put it together to fulfill a need on the market below the fixed operational costs of my competitors
Mm.
profitably?
You're talking about throwing things out there, and I can't help but think about how the evolutionary approach really plays such a strong role in the world of innovation, and how centralized and mechanistic organizations struggle with uh, evolutionary or iterative improvement, whereas decentralized organizations can't help but be evolutionary improving and iteratively improving organizations.
We have to be cautious here. Again, we don't have decentralized organizations. None of them.
Mm,
We have, um, even if you have like a company with 50 employees, 30 or 50 employees, and they are running um, some form of scaled agile, you are already having a founder who takes control.
mm. Who sets incentives? Who sets and has the final
Yes,
call? Mm. You're right.
and that's already a biological view, which is semi-autonomous, semi-decentralized, but
Mm.
not decentralized.
So it's almost like a loss minimization function where you're trying just to minimize the delta between full decentralized organization and where you're at.
To some form, yes, but it's the assumptions that go into it. Everything, whatever you look at, has certain assumptions about what is true, how things should be done, what is right and wrong, or even just how do I want to have it? What do I prefer? And based on these assumptions, things are built and created. And some of them are not true. But they are assumptions, and people never question them.
Yeah,
Like,
it's true.
there are companies requiring full RTO. What are the assumptions that they think that's viable? They believe people who are controlled in the office will produce what we want. Because they think I have to control you, because if I don't control you, you don't work.
Yeah.
They also assume more times in the office where you're controlled equals more work gets done.
I think it could be true for certain job functions where the work is potentially very not pleasant at all.
You
And I
mean
think
like in a factory?
like in a factory or some form of work where the work is just not pleasant at all. But that in my mind is the work that should be automated, because
Like,
no
for
one wants to do
example,
that.
unloading a delivery from, unloading a truck, or
I'm actually
loading a
talking
truck,
about
or handling stuff in logistics in a
kind of
warehouse.
it's more things like data capture or
For that, you
like
don't need people anymore.
that's my point, right? But this still happens today. Is
Yes.
organizations are still paying people to do that type of thing, and I think that is where that control mandate really comes from. And my view is just that that shouldn't exist. People shouldn't be doing these types of jobs.
No, it's not the task which is setting the design. The design exists before the task comes around.
That's also true.
And the
Maybe it's
design is a result of, what do I want? You have preferences, you have limitations, you have trade-offs, you have long-term goals of the organization, and then you take the resources and then your preferences. Some people just believe being in the office makes people more productive.
Yeah.
And then you have people who prove them wrong. But despite the overwhelming evidence, people resist. Because we have biases. We are subject to fallacies. And we don't want to hear information that contradicts what we believe.
Yeah. We
Because
don't
it
like
would
that
shatter
as humans.
everything what we created in our life, what we optimized ourselves for.
I think it's a a self-reinforcing belief, to be honest, because the organizations that mandates work from or return to the office is organizations who already have a predisposition to the same control requirements that watching people work has. And so the organizations that are reporting on this is also the organizations that has the structure where you will see the net benefit in getting people to return back to the office. Whereas organizations that are natively designed not to be office bound, those organizations don't see that same return on investment. In fact, I can tell you out of experience that a lot of the remote native organizations that I've been involved with have seen a productivity decline when people go to the office. Ironically.
Yes, because you
So,
get so much less done in an
yeah,
office setting. Um, it's still one of the celebrated settings that you have these open spaces, but these are designed for open communication. The problem is the setup minimizes your ability to focus.
yeah, and minimizes your ability to unsubscribe from the open communication, right? Like
Yes,
temporarily. I think
you
open
see
communication
everything,
is
you
super
see
valuable.
everyone, you hear them. It's
Yeah,
impossible to flee, which is why I know a few companies here in Switzerland. They started purchasing noise canceling gear,
headphones.
headphones for their employees. So those who like want to detach, they can just go somewhere and cancel the noise out and work focused. But
Genius.
that's
Yeah.
nonsense. Spending
I,
money on rent plus then purchasing.
plus that, yeah. I think that it's probably some smart manager out there that, or some organizational unit there that decided that. I think that it's not maybe company wide.
No,
It's a
with one
band-aid.
company, I know that it was the intern that people wondered why he gets so much done, and they realized that he was sitting in a corner with headphones on. And one of the managers approached him for, why do you wear headphones in here? So he took off the headphones, answered that with all the noise, I can't work, and you need to have this here done until 4 p.m. and I need to focus.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
in the
quite an
next meeting,
interesting
he was
one. Yeah.
asking how many people of the teams have the same issue that they can't focus because there's so much noise in the office.
And everyone raises their hand.
Even managers told the owner that we can't focus. We have a hard
Hmm.
time to focus.
Yeah, I think it's also a matter of just a good example in the remote office space, which is also quite interesting, is that I found that digital interruptions, serve to create the same type of problem. And so what we've implemented is effectively, like, for the first 4 hours of the day, like, no one is online and available, like,
A
at
very good
all,
choice.
because you get more done in that 4 hours than the entire day, if it is a day that's got meetings and interruptions. But for 4 hours, you're pretty much just you and your deep work. And I mean, that's what's that? That's 5 to 8 Pomodoro cycles if you're into the Pomodoro world, which is a lot. It's a lot of cycles, depending on what your Pomodoro looks like. But yeah.
I frame it differently. Even if your 4 hours look like um, 1 hour of meme war with one of your colleagues and going to get like coffees 2 or 3 times and trying to figure out um, which playlist to listen to, and maybe watching a cat or dog video on YouTube, you still have 1 hour of deep focused work. Then within that 1 hour, you get more done than in the 7 other hours.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
I
this
think.
is
Yeah.
mathematically, it's provable.
Mm. I found that one 90-minute focus session is oftentimes more valuable than an entire 2 days, or in some cases when you're serving a calendar of interruptions and the like. But yeah, Daniel,
I try
I
to
think
stay within 30 to 45 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And make breaks, stand up, lift a few weights.
And then go back, yeah.
Get my heart pumping and then get back with a fresh head.
I don't know if you know the term burpees by any chance. Do you know the term burpees?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's my my desk interruption or my break interruption, is I do a few burpees every now and again. Get you awake very quickly.
I personally don't recommend them because they are detrimental for your lower back.
Okay, interesting.
So if you want to speed things up, just do like 50 squats and then 5 minutes of mountain climbers.
Yeah, that would do it as well, yeah.
And then you need a shower, and then you can get back to it.
Yeah, that's true. I've got this thing of a mile run. Like every afternoon when my concentration starts dipping, I do a mile run. And look, I'm not a runner at all, but the nootropic effect of just going for a run is absolutely mind-boggling. Like how much more you're able to focus and like how much higher the quality of focus is. So yeah, just like quickly go run a mile and then you come back and you're like, you need to take a shower, you take your shower, but then you come back and you can like write a piece of content or do something very meaningful. But Daniel, I would really like to thank you for sharing some of your wisdom with us today. It's been absolutely eye-opening in a lot of cases, just listening to how you think about organizational design, how you think about the different architectures, the advantages and disadvantages of each, and how organizations can structure themselves and use some tools to really innovate. So thank you very much for joining me on the podcast and spending some time with us.
It was my pleasure. I hope that some of it will be of the benefit of your audience.
Oh, for sure. And so Daniel, what we do with every single podcast episode is we have a blind question. And this question is a question that the previous guest gets to ask the next guest. And so I'm going to quickly go and open up the question that a person has left for you. And I'd love to get your perspective on that. So let's quickly have a look here. So the question is, if you could do anything, but only one thing to help a business grow, what would that be, generically?
It's not an easy one.
No.
Because in essence, everything is context-driven. But the major issue within organizations is governance and decision-making. And once you improve the decision-making process for an executive or management, then you can improve the governance and with it the organization itself, and they can find ways to grow. So it's basically improving the ability and the process of how decisions are made.
Wow. Some great perspective here, taking a very, very, very difficult question and answering it so eloquently. Daniel, so thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And so I'll be grabbing your question for the next guest in a few moments. And that is it.